For the longest time, men in society have known that women hate the truth and they love comfortable lies. This is the reason why so much pandering is done to women, especially if a company wants to sell them a product or a service, and a man wants to get the opportunity to roar all up in her wet vice grip. People have to lie to women so they can get what they want, and so women are so used to hearing lies that when a real man or woman actually tells them the truth, it's like they get hit with a ton of bricks. Not only that, because women hate change and they would prefer everything around them to change to suit them, they perpetuate this childlike behavior of choosing to believe the false narrative as opposed to accepting the truth and taking accountability. Hence, why fat shaming is a thing, because these XX don't want to put in the work to lose weight, so they would prefer to push the delusional narrative so that society drops their standards and perpetuates the lie. The same can be seen in dating and relationships where LU shaming is no longer a thing because most women decided they didn't want to be good girls anymore. So their mind society needed to accept them sleeping with multiple men as normal if they chose to F as many guys as they desired. So they pushed the lie and delusion that women could sleep with as many men as they wanted and still be wife material, so that society accepted their narrative and dropped the standards so low that the lie ultimately became a reality. That's why now you hear women are empowered for being a 304 when in reality, they know deep down they're not. They just wanted the outcome to be in their favor, so they parlayed the lie to suit their agenda. This is one of the main reasons why women love lies, because it forces everyone around them to change instead of them having to invoke the change themselves. The other reason is that they don't want to get their feelings hurt. And we all know that the truth hurts, so when you tell them a lie because it makes them feel good at the moment, they'll want to hear the lie instead of the cold truth. This is what people do when they prioritize how you make them feel over what the reality of the situation is. Sleeping with 100 men does make the woman a 304, but she doesn't want to hear that because she knows it would be 100 times harder to get a man to settle down with her and be her retirement plan in the end. So she gets offended by that narrative because she knows if men believe that to be true, it's unlikely she'll get a man to commit knowing her past. And she can't have that reality being true. It would be too painful, so she gets a group of other women who are in a similar boat to believe that having 100 bodies should not matter in an attempt to convince more women and then the men, especially young men, to believe the lie until they make enough noise. Society eventually decides to lower its standards to suit the women wanting to push their agenda. As a result, they brainwash the younger generation to accept their narrative, and now we have LU shaming being eroded day by day and young men and older men wifing up 304s. Tap the like button for me, guys, because this is a very complex topic to dissect. In this scenario, all of this starts with just one woman unable to accept the truth due to the consequences she would face due to her decisions. So instead of accepting the painful truth, she decides to push a lie onto society to hopefully get what she wants. That's just an example that may or may not have happened in our world, but it lets you see why they hate the truth so much and love to hear lies. On the flip side, men can't live like this because we hold each other accountable. So we have to accept the truth of the situation because we know that nobody is going to save us from the consequences of our decisions. That's the life that men have to live, and we know that we can't afford to live in delusion because delusion stops progress and halts growth, so men must learn to love the truth. That's the main difference between men and women in modern society. Most XXs, if I'm honest with you, will not amount to anything great or contribute anything of substance to society, and because they depend on men and the government, they know they'll get help so they can afford to live a life of delusions. It's not like the majority of XX are going to build society or contribute in any significant way besides clocking in and out at their job, so the majority of them can afford to live a life filled with lies. On the other hand, men have no support system. It's do or die for most of us, so we can't afford to just live a life of comfortable lies because comfortable lies will get us living on the streets or dead. That's the reality of men because we weren't born with something betwixt our legs that can help us to get the help we need from society. Men have to become, and to become we must do, so we have no choice but to accept the reality of the world so we can make the best use of the situation we find ourselves in. That may be a little confusing, but that's what separates men from women in this world. Men have to become while women just have to be, so lies can work for women because they already have everything they need to live a decent life. Men weren't born with anything of value, so we're forced to accept our position and the reality that comes with it. So comfortable lies won't work when nobody cares about you. It's because society cares a little too much about women in the West. That's why they get away with what they do, and the fact that there's a financial incentive to keep women living in delusion, the cycle will always continue. And make no mistake, it's the men at the top of society who profit from these womanist agendas are the ones who make the lies, delusions, and deceit continue. If you're new, you might as well subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. Now let's look at why the truth is so dangerous to women and how it truly is the medicine men need to have power over women. The reason why the truth is so powerful is that it forces women to change themselves instead of people changing to suit women. As I said earlier in the video, women don't want to change themselves or accept the consequences of their actions, so the lie allows them to push their agenda to change people's minds and actions instead of making the change. So how this puts men at a disadvantage is it forces us to accept less and less each time they perpetuate a lie for their benefit. What this looks like is each time they try to make society accept something, and we decide to accept their agenda, the next thing they push that we accept will lower the bar and standards of how things were before the agenda. And we know that their agenda does not benefit men, it's to benefit themselves, so it puts us in a weaker position because now men have to accept less and less from women. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying because breaking it down is a little complex. Let me give you an example so we're on the same page. Men have always had equal rights and importance regarding the paternity of their children. The mother had the role of nurturing, caring, and teaching the child up to a point. That has always been the mother's role, while the father had the job to provide, protect, and instill life lessons and guide that child on the right path of being able to survive. That has always been the father's role. Well, the father's role was undermined when the agenda of no-fault divorce and child support came into the picture. Suddenly, women became incentivized financially to take the parentage away from the father for money, so they lied about the importance of the father's parentage, creating the deadbeat narrative of father's importance being unnecessary and women can do it on their own. In reality, this has caused far more trouble for society because women alone can't do it. It takes both parents to raise good kids. The women prefer the lie because they gain from fathers paying child support, but the reality is cruel because most of them end up raising effed up kids as a result. I hope you guys see how that one lie has taken away the power of fathers in their kids' lives by allowing them to accept less parentage with their own damn kids, while transferring wealth to the mother and putting the father in a weaker position financially. The lie states that the father's role is not needed in the home and his contribution is not as important as the mother's because the mother's contribution carries more weight. Well, how has that worked out for society? We have kids that are single mother raised being an absolute menace to society with the chances of them being a felon higher than a kid raised in a two-parent household. Kids identifying with 500 different genders, mental health at an all-time high, young people have no direction in life, and the list goes on and on. You see, reality and the truth will always come to bite a comfortable lie in the butt. Because reality is, and the truth is, no matter what, you can't change a constant, just like how we know that if we try to breathe underwater, death is the outcome because that is and will always remain a constant. No matter how we lie to ourselves and say that if fishes can do it, then we can do it too, it doesn't change the fact and reality of death being the result. That is why men have to live life in the truth and in reality because a lie can cost you your life if you're not careful. I know that example was a bit extreme, but it paints the picture of what I was trying to say all along nicely. Now let's wrap the video up with this point. When men know the truth, then men will have the ability to hold power to make a logical decision. Look at the manosphere as an example to bury this point. Before, when men were in the quote-unquote matrix that sold us lies about women and love that benefited women and society. The cost of buying into that lie robbed men of their money, peace, quiet, freedom, kids, and time. But when men started to wake up and teach more men about the RP and the truth, it placed the power back into men's hands to regain that which was stolen and given to women in society. Men no longer had to get married, be in a relationship, fall in love, or lose their money, kids, time, peace, quiet, and freedom anymore. The truth literally set men free of the lies that were fed and the consequences that came with the lie. So that's why you are watching these videos on YouTube, to free yourself of the lies you were fed and to avoid the harsh consequences of said lies. So back to the original title of the video, the medicine to cure women of the lies they were fed is honesty, because this will force them to be realistic about life and make the necessary changes for their long-term well-being. Instead of trying to convince people that being overweight is healthy, accept the reality that they're not and actually lose the weight to become healthy. Instead of convincing men that women who are 304s are wife material, accept the reality that they're not, and the simple fix is to keep their legs closed for a handful of men or their husbands. See what I mean, gents? The truth can save some of these people's lives and cure them of the diseases caused by the lies they have bought into that are destroying their future. The same goes for the delusional men out there that bought into the agenda. You guys need to get your brains washed out clean of the poison of womanism. And without the shadow of a doubt, the cure to all this BS we are facing is the truth and making a positive change. I rest my case. Share the video with a man that needs to hear this message. The links to our Cash App and PayPal are in the description box below. I would suggest that you become realistic about this life, because nobody will care or try to save you when reality comes knocking at your door and Mr. Consequences kick it wide open and start destroying your life. If you want to learn about the mistake that 97% of men make that end up ruining their lives, then click the video on the screen right now so you'll be able to avoid this mistake.